sharing for 30 minutes. So the meeting is over to you, Paul.
Okay, yeah, thanks, I'm poor man addicts. Lucky there's no one to jump in and, nick my sharing space or time or anything like that. And you can't get no feedback in this meeting, you know what I mean? The only disappointment is I won't be able to hear a newcomer, you know what I mean? And, someone walking through the door, their first meeting. If it's your first meeting in Narcotics Anonymous, good luck. Good luck and some hard work and some perseverance, you know what I mean, and I don't know where to start. I've got a few little notes here, you know what I mean, but I'll probably ignore them once I get going. And what can I say? I came in here 14 years ago, 4 months, 29 days, something like that. That's what they do in America. When I went in America and they're all counting down the days and everything else, you know what I mean? I was a little bit slow behind them, so I just thought, as long as I don't stay too far away from what it was like when I came in here and everything else, the rest will take care of itself, you know what I mean? And when I came here, I didn't really know if I wanted to stop using. A few friends had got clean in the mid-90s. I think the mid-90s was probably the first time I heard of anyone getting clean, and I just see one of my friends, and I grew up around here. I grew up in Somers Town, a little place just down there, and there ain't really many people from Somers Town. I don't even think there is anyone else from Somers Town in this room. Oh, who's me? Oh, come on, sorry. Right. It's a lot from where I live now in Regent's Park Estate or whatever, but not obviously just me and Con in the room that are from that place, so it kind of tells you that it's quite a difficult place to come from and to get clean and everything else that goes with it. You know what I mean? And it's nice to see a few old faces and few people there's quite a few of my peer group here that I got clean with, in the early days, in Marchman Street and whatever. I mean, I said to my sponsor, we was chatting on Skype last night, and I said to him, have you got any words of wisdom for me tomorrow? And he said, yeah, go to Buck Street. And it's quite, he's been kind of doing work and whatever, and I've got to make sure the other one ain't here because I don't want him getting resentful or anything like that I'm sharing about the other sponsor, you know what I mean? I've got two because the logistics of one, when you're reading step work and things like that, it's kind of difficult to you can't really do step 4s or step 5s over Skype, that's, you know what I mean? I prefer doing something face to face. And so that's really the reason. And he's kind of been in sort of Karachi, and he kind of did give me something to talk about. And he kind of just said, look, he's been working in an orphanage in Karachi where, young kids, 8 and upwards or whatever, that are kind of giving heroin just to keep them quiet at birth, from birth upwards or whatever, and obviously they're orphaned and they end up in sort of this orphanage, which is kind of like a mini 12-step treatment program for young orphan children. And they kind of get them through the first 3 steps, but there's no real kind of NA for them, you know what I mean? To kind of go out to, so they just go back out on the street. And he said to me that sort of most of them are probably going to die. You know what I mean? But they get them through the first 3 steps. And I said, well, what about the 4th and 5th? And he said, well, I said, what, is it too dangerous? He said, yeah, it's more dangerous than King's Cross. But just, you know what I mean? It's funny where, he's 35 years or whatever and out of Lisson Grove and things like that, and he's down, helping young children down in Karachi or whatever, And I couldn't get out of Camden Town. I couldn't, my using was in this area, or whatever, or just indoors or whatever with my brother, and a few people here that are in, Regents or what. Obviously there was a progression of using from drinking through, through the party drugs and whatever, You know, I say party drugs, I mean, sort of like, I mean, people were talking about, you know, LSD yesterday. I mean, I nearly ended up in a nut house with my first LSD. I mean, I was outside a rave in, Rosebery Avenue, and I didn't know, all I'd heard about LSD was something that, like, from the 60s, you know what I mean? You know, and kind of like, and someone was selling them outside a club, and, like, I looked at one of them, I just thought they were a bit small, you know what I mean? I better have two. And I went off my head in that club, and then I kind of like, and then I ended up getting arrested and everything else, and sort of like, you know, and I was gone, you know, and I mean they was going to section me and lock me up and everything else, you know what I mean, you know, and I think I come round in the morning, and I said to the custody sergeant, I said, look, I'm very sorry, and you know. I was out in Holborn last night and someone must have spiked my drink, you know, or whatever, and sort of like, yeah, he said, well, you know, we was going to lock you up in a nut house last night, you know what I mean? But that still didn't stop me taking them, you know what I mean? You know, even though I didn't like them, if there was nothing else to take, you take what's in front of you, you know what I mean? You know, kind of like, and, you know, so... I want to talk about how I got in here as well, and then, you know, the drugs. Look, it's Narcotics Anonymous. People say it ain't about the drugs. Yeah, I've got to be careful of destructive behaviours and everything else. You don't want to hear about my day because it's been a pretty angry one. You know, it just seems like I'm doing more than everyone else. You know what I mean? You know, everyone else seems to be doing less, and I seem to be doing more. You know what I mean? And you know, so you know. Very difficult to embrace change in certain parts of the programme, you know what I mean? You know, whatever, but, you know, kind of like, I mean, you know, sort of like, I mean, one thing I've always done, you know what I mean, you know, and sort of like, you know, I don't like it when people speak bad about Narcotics Anonymous. You know, this programme saves my life. Every meeting I go to, every door I step over, it saves my life. You know what I mean? You know, there's people out there now relapsing, and they're going to come in here and tell you lot, you know, maybe not at this meeting, do you know what I mean? You know, but they're going to come into a meeting near you and tell you what it was like and how it was and whatever. They're going to do your using and your relapsing for you, and for me as well, you know what I mean? You know, so the one thing that I kind of had drummed into me pretty early was, you know, get to meetings. I went to a pretty tough treatment centre. You know, there was group after group after group after fucking group, you know, kind of like, and, you know, I mean, I don't know, pretty quickly, you know, I kind of thought, you know, I'm in here to save my life. You know what I mean? And that hasn't changed. You know, I think, you know, in 2012, I was in a pretty bad way in recovery. You know, I was in another rock bottom, you know, whatever, and sort of like, I came to this, and I think Raymond and that were over here from America and whatever, and kind of like, and I mean, they'd shut the meeting in Shoreditch on the Sunday of the convention. I was really angry about that. I didn't need to be really angry for like a week and a half, but I was. You know what I mean? And, you know, sort of like, and, because not everyone knows about the convention. A newcomer don't know about it, you know, don't know. So we've got to keep the doors open. And sometimes I don't always agree with that kind of group conscience that says shut the doors because we all want to piss off down the convention. You know what I mean? You know, and... But anyway, I didn't need to be angry for such a long time. And anyway, I heard saying, and I went back, and fortunately, I'd met, my sponsor was in town and whatever, and kind of like, and I'd never been through the step working guide or anything like that. And I was probably around 11 and a half, 12 years clean. And, you know, kind of, we sat down and we went for a curry, and, you know, kind of like, and we got talking about, and I was talking about Raymond and Jimmy and things like that, and they were sharing about the step working guide or whatever, and kind of like, he turned around and said, well, why don't we go through the step working guide? You know, and, you know, sort of like, because I'd had a few opinions about the step working guide as well, you know what I mean? Because my disease don't want to do, you know, the step working guide or anything like that. You've got every answer in the book, you know what I mean? You know, sort of like, and, you know, of course you don't want to upset sponsors. My sponsor was going through a difficult time. His wife had died and whatever, etc. You know, whatever. But I was fucking dying. You know, 10 years and whatever. Look, friends of mine have been relapsing 14 years, 7, 8 years or whatever. You know, and I don't know, my anger might have got the better of me and I might have seriously hurt someone. You know, or I might have got mouthed off to the wrong person and got fucking hurt myself, you know what I mean? You know, whatever, I could have ended up in jail. You know, so I needed something. I needed a power greater than myself again. You know what I mean? You know, kind of like, and when I kind of worked out that sort of like in 2006 was probably the last time that I'd looked at anything or whatever. I'd gone to meetings, I was sharing, I was talking, or I'd harboured a few secrets and things like that. And, you know, but the disease was rebuilding itself, years clean, you know, or whatever. And, you know, and it was only when I started doing the steps again that it kind of like, you know, I got a breakthrough, mate. You know, and sort of like, you know, I kind of realised that I was lucky. In one way, shape or form, you know, the step working guide and the steps, it, you know, kind of had stopped me ending up in a bad way. Because we know that people relapse after years in recovery or whatever. You know, you go to enough meetings, you hear enough of this message, you know what I mean? You know, to kind of like, you know, and I do. You know, in the 14 and a half years, I cannot give you any time that I kind of got angry with this program or, you know, or whatever, that I said, well, I'm not going to Narcotics Anonymous. You know what I mean? You know, no matter what I went through or whatever, or breakups, relationships, things weren't happening, things weren't going my way. You know, Dad died, you know, my brother here kind of like, you know, I got a call at midnight and, you know, I hadn't seen him for a few years, you know what I mean? And kind of like he'd swallowed 70 paracetamol, you know, kind of like I ended up going up to sort of like St Mary's in Paddington. You know, there was little Mark, you know, kind of like on the day he died, I was in his house when he'd OD'd in his house or whatever with his family. I'd seen what it was like to see a family really hurt when their son had died, you know what I mean? You know, and this is someone that I'd grown up with or whatever, you know what I mean? You know, it's happened to a lot. The person that was looking after my house when I went into Barleywood, you know, kind of like, I left him in my house and I got ejected from the detox because I took a bit of gear in there initially. I was going into treatment, you know what I mean? But I was asking my pal where I could get some gear in there, you know what I mean? And when they asked me did I have any gear, of course I denied it and, you know, sort of like, and I left, my friend was in my house, Joe, and obviously I was about 7 days clean when I came out of there and I was coming back to London and I had someone using. I was 7 days clean, and he used to bang me up. I didn't really bang up a lot. I used to chase the dragon, you know what I mean? You know, because I enjoyed that. I kind of thought if I really got into the needles or anything like that, I couldn't enjoy my gear. You know what I mean? You know, whatever. I just thought, you know, put it in your arm and that's it. And, you know, well, it is, but, you know, and so I prefer to kind of enjoy, you know, and, you know, so yeah, you know, so even like when I came out of sort of treatment, like or that detox, I had a decision to make. I had to throw someone out of my house, and it's quite difficult when you're 7 days clean to kind of like, you know, even though you're encountering a situation where it don't take us much to just go, yeah, right, you know, get talking to someone and bomb. You know, you're on the end of his needle, you know what I mean? You know, thankfully I just had enough or whatever to just like, you know, and he just kind of, I just got him out of my house. Yeah, I can't remember the exact way or whatever, but, you know, I'm here, I'm alive, so. And then, you know, kind of like, and then the very first guy I'd seen in sort of like 1995 or whatever, kind of 1993, I went round and I knocked on his house or whatever, sort of like in Somers Town, and he weren't in, you know. But I managed to get to the Camden Town meeting at 7:30, you know, kind of like or whatever, and that was my first sort of London meeting, get out of jail meeting on a Tuesday night. Set up by a few people for obvious reasons, you know. You know, kind of like, you know, kind of, you know, so. But yeah, you know, sort of, I mean, last week I kind of, travelling has been a big thing of mine, do you know what I mean? You know, if I ever go away or whatever, I had a fantastic time. Sometimes we give the Americans stick or whatever, but you know what? I ain't being funny. I had a really fantastic time out there last week. I got right into the meetings. They couldn't do enough for me. They dropped me here. I was just picked up and just carried by the... Listen, it took me 42 years to get off the continent of Europe. You know, or whatever. So it was, you know, that was a more will be revealed, you know what I mean? You know, my family didn't even want to take me on holiday, you know what I mean? The only kind of like, you know, was the odd sort of like criminal enterprise, and I wasn't no mastermind, you know. I was doing it for a few drugs and to, you know, see a bit of Tenerife or something like that, you know, and kind of like I remember being in a club with a few of my friends or whatever, and we was cashing travellers checks and things like that, and I remember my pal John standing behind me, and I always remember the drink. It was a vodka and lemonade. And kind of like, he said, "Come on, we're going to work in the morning." And I said, "Hold on, I'm just finishing my drink." And I turned around and he'd gone. And I thought, "Fuck you, I'm staying out all night." And it happened to be a good decision, because the next day they went out, and this poor fellow had come from London. They went out, and they ended up getting arrested and ended up in Santa Cruz prison up in the north of Tenerife. And kind of like one of my pals lost an eye in there. You know, kind of like, you know, so... But, I mean, I come back and that still wasn't enough, you know what I mean? You know, and in the end, I kind of ended up around Camden Town or whatever, kind of scared for my life and everything else and, you know, whatever. And, you know, I mean, this programme's fantastic. Then everything didn't come together just because I got clean. There's people in here that kind of know me from the King's Cross meetings. I'm kind of thinking about that meeting or whatever recently. That was a kind of bedrock for 4 or 5 years. The Fifth Street meeting, someone told me to go down there and put the chairs out, and I've been there ever since. I only went down there to put the chairs out, you know what I mean? You know. You know, so, you know, and I've stayed down there, and that meeting's important to me. That group is important to me. You know, the Camden meetings are important to me. You know, whatever, you know, the King's Cross meeting was important for me at different times or whatever. You know, kind of like, and like I said, a lot of my friends, you know, won't be kind of, you know, making meetings today or whatever. Some are going out to do more research for us and, you know what I mean, you know, whatever, do some relapsing. You know, of all the things that, you know, I've got right or got wrong, you know, I've always come here. You know what I mean? And, you know, we're all worth our seats. Sometimes we just got to fight for them a little bit more. Sometimes we've got to hold on to them. You know what I mean? I've had a odd punch up outside meetings and whatever, normally with people double my size. You know what I mean? You know, or whatever. But, you know, it didn't stop me coming. I didn't think I've had a fight, you know, or whatever. I'm not coming here anymore. My fucking life was on the line, you know what I mean? You know, and, you know, so, you know, we're here to save my life, save your life or whatever, and get a better quality of life. You know, whatever, you know, sort of like, so... But listen, I don't really want to go on anymore. You know, or whatever, you know what I mean? I've had my 20 minutes, I've waited for 14 years, 4 months for it. I don't even get up here to take a meeting. I've done one backroom share in 14 years. You know, whatever. I mean, he's got up here quicker than me. You know, so... You know, anyway, so... Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and like, thanks for asking me. Thanks to everyone that kind of voiced some things, and the committee, and everyone that kind of got behind, and, you know what I mean, you know, and... You know, our meeting will be open tomorrow. You know, that'll be open, don't worry. You know, so don't worry, but we'll be over there before we come over here. You know what I mean, so... And hopefully, you know, like, that's right where I grew up or whatever. You never know, someone from my area might walk in and might get this message or something like that, you know, or someone and come in and, you know, I love listening to a newcomer, you know what I mean, when they come in and they really, you know, carry a strong message or whatever. So, and, you know, like I said, I had a really great time in New York, you know what I mean. So, I mean, they really helped me. I mean, sort of like, they, you know, I was just sitting in meetings, and before you know, they were sort of like, "Do you want to come to a meeting tonight?" or 3 or 4. In the end, I mean, I had to go to church on the Sunday. Fucking get away from them, you know. You know, but you know. But you know, so if you see any people from anywhere, from Europe, from America or whatever, you know, kind of like, you know, be warm and, you know what I mean. We're all quick to kind of, we've all got opinions about things or whatever, you know what I mean? So let's just, make this convention what it is, a really great convention and whatever. So, anyway, thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Paul.